Greetings, Benjamin J. from Ben's Trains with another in the series. Well, this arrived today from eBay. Two motors, found them for $8. Now, as you know, I'm looking for double reduction motors. But if I can find a motor cheap, I buy it. In this case, a single reduction motor that was almost complete and one that was not. The nice thing about it, of course, was I used the parts off of this one to repair this one. Took the brushes, the brush springs. Anyway, this motor is up and running. Ran it on the bench. Now this arrived about, I don't know, noon, something like that. About 2 o'clock it started to snow. It's been snowing since. So I was snowed in all day today and possibly tomorrow, depending on when the snow stops and when they plow the streets. Anyway, it was fortuitous that it showed up when it did because it gave me something to do today. Anyway, I found this on eBay for $8, and I always stress, don't overlook the junk. If neither one of these ran, I wouldn't have lost anything because it is absolutely full, a treasure trove of Marx parts. Now, I tested this one. It doesn't run, of course, because I've already stripped the brushes and springs off of it. But the E-unit does work. So I took the parts out of this one and transferred them to this one. Let me turn the power on. Anyway, this is actually running quite well. E-unit works. It's far from perfect. It's absolutely covered in rust. Let me pull the camera off the tripod. Get this tripod out of the way. Hold on. All right, so as you see, a lot of rust. The thing's been stored for decades without running. Anyway, neither one of them were complete. So, like I said, I took the parts off this one, transferred them to this one, ran it on the bench, and it is up and running. As you see, it's actually running really well. So as I always stress, don't overlook the junk. So I can take this motor, put it in a shell, and I have a new locomotive. So I'm going to put a light bulb in it. I've got a Menards bulb here. So put this in, and as you see, a new motor. Up and running. Total cost $8 for both of them. Now when I looked at them, this one was missing the brushes and the brush springs. This one had the brush and the brush springs, but it was missing the wheels and the bearings. So anyway, when this got here, I did a simple swap and swapped the brushes and the brush springs to this one. A bit of judicious cleaning, lubrication, a shot of WD-40 into the E-unit, cleaned the armature, and it was up and running. This thing was dead as a hammer when I first tried to run it. It would buzz, but it would not run. Anyway, I put the brushes and the brush springs in it and just did some judicious cleaning, tuning, and lubing. It's up and running. This one, I mean, if you have the parts, you can go ahead and assemble a new motor out of this. In this case, I tested the E-unit. The E-unit does cycle. No idea if it actually works, but it does cycle, so the solenoid is working. And so I just snagged the parts that I needed off of this motor, transferred them to this one. It gave me one running motor. And out of this one, I still have the E-unit, brush plate, armature, coil itself, and everything else was stripped off of it. No idea why. Obviously somebody else needed the parts. But when I saw both of them, what they both needed, it was just a simple swap of taking the parts off that one, adding them to this one, cleaning it, lubing it, and it's up and running. So as I always stress, don't overlook the junk. You know, I'm always looking for double reduction motors, but if I can find a motor cheap, I buy it. And if I can't fix it, of course, use it for parts. Out of this one motor, you've got the four wheels, the push rods, the crossbar, the E-unit, excuse me, the socket itself, the contactor, the brush plate, the brush springs, the brushes, the armature, all the gearing, and it's up and running. I didn't really have to do anything to it as far as repair, just had to swap some parts out. This one still has the E-unit, the brush plate, and the armature, and the coil itself, of course. So if you have the parts, you can assemble this one. What I'm going to do is strip it and drop the parts into the parts box, snag the E-unit out of it, and take it from there. This one is going to go into a shell, more than likely, and it's up and running. So 2 motors $8, and out of those two, I assembled one that's actually running absolutely perfectly. Now you can see it's far from perfect. It has been stored someplace damp for a very, very long time. And no idea what happened to that one. But when I looked at them, I saw the parts that were needed on this one that I could simply swap off of that one, and the motor is up and running. So as I stressed, don't overlook the junk. Even if you can't get a motor running, if you find a motor on eBay and you buy it and it's just dead as a hammer, you haven't lost anything. A set of wheels with the push rods on eBay right now is $10. The E-unit itself, $15. The main coil, $10, $12. The armature, the brushes, the brush springs, the contactor plate, it all has value and it all adds up. So in this case, 2 motors, swapped some parts out, and it gave me one running motor that's running absolutely splendidly. So I can drop this into a shell and I have a new locomotive for $8. Single reduction motor, but even so, it's a running single reduction motor that costs $8. Plus I have all the parts that I can scavenge off of this one, including an E-unit that cycles. I have not tested it for its conductivity yet, but it does cycle. So in all probability, it will work. So just wanted to do a quick video. Gave me something to do today, and hopefully they'll plow the streets tonight. It's 27 degrees, so all of this is going to turn to ice. It snowed, I don't know, almost 4 inches today, I guess, something like that. It's supposed to start snowing again at midnight tonight, so I don't know what tomorrow holds. But I was glad this got here today. It gave me something to do. Took it in, worked on the bench, did the swap on those parts, brushes the springs. Rest of it was basically just lubrication and cleaning. That thing was just absolutely covered in oxide. It's been sitting someplace for years. Anyway, I found it on eBay, both of these for $8. So I couldn't pass it up. Every single part on these things have value. The nuts themselves, the screw out of the brush plate itself, the armature, the E-unit, push rods, wheels, contactor plate, lots and lots of parts. If you added all these parts up, you've got $100 worth of parts here. In this case, 2 motors, $8. Did some swaps from that one to this one, and it's up and running. Is it perfect? Nope, far from it. But it's a running single reduction motor that was absolutely dirt cheap. So I have got to say it, don't overlook the junk. You can drop this into a shell. It's a virtual replacement for almost any Marx motor, and including the 666. You can turn the front crossbar around and actually mount a single reduction in a Marx 666 shell. It gives you a running locomotive. Far from perfect, but dirt cheap and running. The only thing I actually had to add was a light bulb. It's one of those Menards bulbs. Anyway, I just want to do a quick follow-up or a quick video on these motors. As I always stress, don't overlook the junk. Even if you can't get it running, it's worth 5 times, 6 times what I paid for it, just in parts. Now, you price all these individual parts on eBay, and it would cost you a fortune to assemble one of these motors out of parts. And yet you can buy the complete motor for $8, $10, and strip it for parts, and you can fix 5 or 6 other motors out of the parts from one of these motors. No 2 motors are going to have the same problem. But in this case, it was a simple expedient to strip the parts off this one, put them on this one, and the motor's up and running. And plus I have all the parts available out of that one. So I just want to do a quick video on this. I gotta stress it. Don't overlook the junk. You know, if you want to do this on an absolute shoestring budget, this is the way to do it. And if you need a supply of parts, look around for some junk motors. If you can't get them running, you have lost absolutely nothing. These are an absolute treasure trove of parts, and you can get these things, in most cases, absolutely dirt cheap. Covered in rust, yes, but it's running. E-unit works, and there's absolutely no problems with this at all. So drop it into a shell, and you have a new locomotive, plus all of the parts you can scavenge off of this one. So I just want to do a quick video As always, if you have any questions, feel free to drop me an email, BENZTRAINZ@gmail.com. And as always, thank you for watching.